Welcome to the Hollywood Raw YouTube page, guys. We're happy to have you here. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave us comments, do all the stuff.
What are you waiting for? Let's go. I got a drug addiction to feed.
Welcome to the Hollywood Raw podcast. My name is Adam Glyn. Over there is Dax Holt. I brushed my hair today, Dax, so I just got out of the shower.
You look so fancy today.
Come on. Dude, it's so weird. I'm wearing a Roy Rogers shirt, which you have no idea what it is. It was a shitty fast food joint growing up, and I brushed my hair. Who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore. Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. Yeah, nothing much going on over here. I feel like I don't have anything exciting to talk about.
Do you take 1 or 2 showers a day?
Most times, no, one. Yeah, one. Because I shower in the morning after I come back from the gym.
Gotcha. Okay.
It depends. If I get sweaty during the day, then I'll take another shower.
You have to deal with you have to deal with a different temperature. I'm definitely one a day, but twice a day would be tough. I just don't really have the time. It would be weird if I kind of plan my showers so I don't have to take 2 a day. You know, if I know I'm going to get sweaty and a little bit more, I'm not going to. I don't know. Some people like to be clean in bed. I get it. I like to be clean going to bed. I like a clean bed. I don't brush. All right, random conversation, Dax. I just got into it. I just wanted to see if I was normal and not normal. Welcome to the Hollywood Raw podcast. My name is Adam Glyn. We are two entertainment news journalists who has more than a decade experience. Is it 2 decades of experience now, Dax?
So I'm going to say yes. And you know why I'm going to say yes? Because I saw that it was Suri Cruz's 18th birthday the other day.
And I'm wild?
Like, are you kidding me? I was standing outside the Scientology Center the day that she was born, trying to figure out if Katie was going to give birth to her there. How the time has flown. Like, what?
She would be. I mean, I can't wait till Suri becomes like a little bit more of an adult and eventually does her first interview so we can hear what it was like. Because that's going to be, of all these people that are doing books right now, the only person I want to hear is Suri. I want to know, what was it like? What happened?
But do you think she was too young, though, to like really remember all the details? And you know how much like you realize like later in life how much your parents sheltered you from shit going on in your life?
Yeah, but now she's a little bit older, so she's probably having conversations with her mother of what happened during that time. Why don't I have a relationship with my father? My father is the biggest celebrity in the world. Yet again, I don't talk to them. Why? Why don't I have a father?
You know what's interesting is Katie probably, signed the NDA, can't talk, can't disparage him. I don't think there's anything that Suri signed. She was too young. Yeah. So that could be a really interesting loophole into the whole scenario, is having Suri finally come forward and talk. And it's her truth. It's her dad. And I don't think there's anything preventing her from talking.
I'm actually so surprised Katie hasn't really spoken more about the relationship, because
she can't. There's no way she can.
You know what? There's a little bit of stain on her career from Tom Cruise. And of course, she's financially being taken care of. However, it's still just a wild, wild thing. So at what point is Suri going to actually talk about it?
Suri's 18 now. So any of that child support would have stopped at this point.
Yeah, unless she doesn't have access to the estate. I don't know. It's a very weird thing. And again, I'm also surprised by the media when you're on a red carpet. I'm surprised not one reporter has asked, what's your relationship with your daughter, Suri?
Because the people that surround Tom Cruise are really good at what they do. And to get an interview with Tom Cruise is so lucrative for people that they're not going to mess it up. So I'm sure people go ahead of time and the publicist says, all right, I'm going to give you 5 minutes with Tom. There's going to be no Scientology questions, no family questions, and give them the restrictions. So if they were to ask about Suri, boom, interview's done.
Yeah, but someone's always going to try to shake it up a little bit, or someone just yell it to him on the red carpet. Even that clip alone, or if Tom's walking by, and he's a foot away from you, and ask you about your relationship with his relationship with Surrey, that in itself would just go viral. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But today's episode, we're going to do part 2 of celebrities who we almost lost. What is the title, Dax, of this?
Celebrity near-death experiences.
Celebrity
Part
near-death experience.
dos.
Mhm. We did it first time. You guys enjoyed it. We had more names to the list that we didn't get into. Today we're going to get into that. But Dax, you know what time it is?
What time is it?
It's time to read a review. Yeah. Yes, we love reviews. If you give us a review, we give you a shout out on the air. Dax, do you have a review ready for us?
I got a review. All right, this one is a 5-star review from a collective, maybe is how you say the name. It says, finally rating. That's the title. Found you early 2023 from Juicy Scoop. I haven't missed an episode since. I've been a pop culture fan my whole life, and you both are top tier. Appreciate you working over the holidays and always being consistent. I'm home with a newborn, and it's got me through many days. Happy New Year. Love you guys. Tiffany from Greenville, North Carolina. Wow, we're that far behind on reviews. I am so sorry that it took us 4 months into the year to get to your review. But thank you, Tiffany. Really, really appreciate it.
We will always get to review. But yes, Tiffany, thank you so much for review. It's so kind that you took the time. And again, guys, we always say the best thing to do to support this podcast is to give us a review. All right, Dax, today's episode, celebrities that had pretty much near-death experiences, part 2. Who's number 1 on this?
People we almost lost, and we are so lucky to still have them here with us, is basically what it comes down to. The first episode, we talked about quite a few celebrities. Do you remember who any of them were?
Well, the first one we had, the first one we had, no, we had Michael J. Fox. We had,
That's right.
We had Michael J. Fox. We had, who else do we have on that list?
I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna look it up because I remember we had a bunch of good ones. All right, we had Charlize Theron.
Yeah.
We had, like you said, Michael J. Fox, Lamar Odom. Did we end up talking about Tracy Morgan? I think we brought him up for a hot second. Kristen Chenoweth.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a pretty good list of people, and we have even more now. We have more people. It's a weird, like, plane themed episode, I would say, because it seems like we got a bunch of people that almost died in plane crashes. So if you're going on a plane flight later this afternoon or listening to this on a plane flight, turn it off now, because we don't want to freak you out. But we're gonna start with Post Malone, who almost died in a plane crash. This was pretty scary, and I remember when all of this went down, it was like live time, if you remember.
Yeah.
That right after he took off from Teterboro Airport in New Jersey, he was headed to London, and it seemed like 2 of the tires popped right during takeoff. And so they were in the air going, shit, like, how are we going to land this plane with no wheels on it, essentially? And I remember this all kind of unfolding. Everyone was watching the sky because what they had to do was they had to fly around for, I want to say it was like a few hours to burn up the fuel, because the plane had 3,700 gallons of fuel to burn, because if they were going to crash land, you obviously don't want that much fuel, because then you just blow up when you hit the ground. And so I remember this was a really, really big deal. Air traffic control was called. They had all these emergency vehicles on the tarmac waiting for them to touch down. And so they were gonna actually touch down in Stewart International Airport in Windsor, New York. And so I remember TMZ doing a whole bunch of stories, like minute by minute, where they were, when they were going to be touching down. There were 9 fire trucks, 25 personnel, 12 ambulances on standby, waiting for this private jet to land. And then luckily everything went very well. They touched down and had a successful landing. And I remember him got on on the phone and basically said, look, I landed you guys. Thank you for the prayers. Can't believe how many people wish death on me on this website. Fuck you, because he was hitting up TMZ saying it. But glad Post is still with us today after all that. And he goes, I need a drink now. I need some booze after that, because that's really a stressful experience that you're flying around knowing shit. Like, I hope we land this okay.
I wonder if he had Wi-Fi on the plane that he was able to connect with his loved ones and just say, "Hey, just want to let you know there's something going on." Leave a message for them. Were you at TMZ? I was at TMZ at the time. Were you at TMZ at the time during that story?
2018. No, I think I left in 2016.
Yeah, I was there. And I remember TMZ somehow got a setup shot with Post right off he got off the plane, just to kind of like calm people down.
Well, did he FaceTime with them? Didn't he? Like literally did like a FaceTime video.
Yeah, he basically. Listen, he worked the room. But fortunately, it worked out well because Post Malone is one of the coolest, nicest guys. It's getting harder to find to get in touch with. Like, he'll use a garage when he can use a garage. However, if you get him on the street, he's always very nice. He goes, "Hi, sir. Hi, ma'am." Like, he's very polite, very nice. But can you imagine just burning the fuel up and then eventually everyone watching to see if you make it or not?
Yeah, like everyone's just watching you touch down. Like, and the sad thing is, that there's people, they want to watch the crash landing. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a weird curiosity there. But God, Post is really one of the greatest guys in the entertainment industry. So glad he's with us.
Yeah. He's doing Stagecoach now. I mean, he's just so all over. He's just so well liked by everyone. No, he's not. He doesn't do beats. He just he's this nice guy who kind of music is very fluid. His style's very fluid that could kind of go into all the genres. But I just remember that day how when that story broke, we were all waiting to watch to see what happened and how many part of me wonders. Nah, never mind. That's sad. But if it wasn't a celebrity, would we have so many trucks there to see if it landed okay?
Yes. When they know that there is a potential crash landing, yes, I've seen it before. They get tons of ambulances, fire trucks, police, everyone out there that shut down the whole tarmac. Like, they brace for the worst, hoping for the best.
Yeah, well, I'm glad Post is with us. Dex, who's someone else we on this list?
We'll stay in the music industry. We almost lost Eminem. Eminem almost died years ago.
I don't remember this.
Back in 2007, he had an overdose that landed him in the hospital. He overdosed on methadone. So he was fighting an addiction to prescription medication at the time when he overdosed and was hospitalized. And it took him quite a while to actually come back to being Eminem, because he said, my brain didn't even work there for a long time. And he doesn't talk a lot about this. He opened up on a podcast, the Paul Pod podcast, hosted by Paul Rosenberg, which is his manager. I want to say manager. Yeah. And just talked about how this near-death experience really changed his life. What's interesting, though, is after the overdose, he went back to using again. But he was scared by the near-death experience and then went back to rehab and finally got, I think that was around 2008, went to rehab to really kind of sort out his issues. The dude almost died. He's a father. He's extremely successful. I know that you get, I think all of that kind of was the eye-opening realization of oh shit, I don't want to leave my daughter here on earth without me. That would be awful, because I need to get myself some help.
Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, Eminem, by the way, I follow his daughter on Instagram, and she's kind of
a good follow.
I mean, it's just crazy because she's a very pretty girl, and I think she's engaged already. What was her name that he made this song about her? Haley, and she's engaged already. And it's just weird to kind of see when she was a kid, and now she's about to get married to a guy. So
can you imagine Eminem as your father-in-law? Can you imagine how scary that would be? When you first start dating Haley, you think oh, I got to go meet the dad. There's already pressure to meet the father of your girlfriend. But then Eminem constantly just looks pissed off all the time. So you're like, hi, sir, don't kill me. Like, to me, I would be freaked out if Eminem was the father that I had to meet.
You know what? This is sort of off topic, but interesting. Do you remember a few years ago? It was on another rapper, Lil Wayne. TMZ
Okay.
did a story about Lil Wayne that he was in critical condition and almost like basically people
Oh,
were saying his
yeah.
goodbyes, and he was in ICU
Yeah,
and
I
he was
totally I forgot
sleeping.
about that.
And
Yeah.
that was a huge story. I remember people call me up like, "Oh my god, is Lil Wayne like about to die?" And I was like,
Wait,
"I don't know. This is
what was
insane."
this? Yeah.
This was back in like this was a few years ago, actually, not too long ago, and within like 5 years, I would say. And everyone was like, "Oh my god, Lil Wayne's gonna die." I think it was like a Friday afternoon, if I remember, and like,
Mhm.
"Oh my god, Lil Wayne's gonna die." And then all of a sudden, he was fine. And TMZ, the story kind of like kiboshed itself, and I think they kind of deleted it from the internet. That story, how that story broke. I mean, TMZ got the story insanely wrong
Well,
because
was
Lil
it
Wayne.
wrong or was it that they tried to cover it up? I can't remember what the
I think they got
situation.
it wrong. They tried to cover it up, and they just had a bad source, and everyone was flipping out that Lil Wayne was going to die, and he wound up being like fine, like he was okay. I mean, he's still okay now. He's touring. He's doing his thing. So
That doesn't mean anything. I mean, someone could easily go to the hospital and almost die, and then they try to like push it under the rug too. I
yeah,
feel like we've seen that happen before, where they're like, "Oh, we don't want to let people know that they had an overdose or whatever it was," and they try to just like, "Okay, well, all good. Look over
yeah,
there."
no, that was that's it's so. I mean, so I know a person that died, and they tried to say that they had heart problems. Like, no, they OD'd.
Well, you have
They
heart problems when the drugs stop your heart.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Dax, we talked about Eminem. We kind of briefly remembered this Lil Wayne. We talked about Post Malone. Any other rappers, or are we all go good on rappers?
I mean, we got we'll get to some more rappers down the list, but
Yeah.
I mean, unless you want to talk 50 Cent right now, because we do have 50 Cent on the list. He was very famously almost killed years and years ago when he got shot 9 times. And this was back in 2000 outside of his grandmother's home in Queens, New York. I think he was 25 years old at the time, and he had said basically, um, I guess his grandma, she was bent over planting flowers in a garden. I walked over there to get in the vehicle where my friend was waiting for me, and the car pulled up outside of us, and the guy came out of the passenger seat of that car, came came around about it and shot through the actual car, and 9 bullets entered 50 Cent's body. And so he did end up saying that the shots went through his legs, hands, arms, face, chest. His legs were broken in several places, and he spent 13 days in the hospital. And he basically said, it doesn't hurt as much as people imagine it hurts because of the adrenaline, but it hurts after. So he goes, going through that experience, when you get hurt that bad, either your fear consumes you or you become a bit insensitive. He goes, which he is probably one of the most insensitive people
Yeah. Yeah.
on the internet, who just trolls everyone, and he's not the nicest person he likes making fun of everyone. But he said there was a point where I was afraid, and then in the recovery process I got tired of being afraid. The only way to cover those emotions was to be a bit more aggressive and to be angry about the situation, opposed to how I was actually feeling at that point. So crazy. I mean,
Nine shots is a lot of bullets.
yeah, I was going
That's
to
a lot.
say the only thing that's kind of different about him is this was before he became famous. Like a lot of the other people that we're talking about in here, right? He wasn't famous back in 2000.
No, 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 no.
A lot of the other people that we've talked about or we're going to talk about were famous during the moment where they almost died.
Yeah. Did you know that 50 Cent just created his own like film studios in Louisiana? Actually,
No.
so he just built his own film studios in Louisiana. He's trying to create opportunities for a community. He says he's trying to foster talent, create opportunities that pretty much thrives on community, creativity, and innovation. But pretty cool that he's such like a business guy.
Yeah.
But it's so like different because he does like some incredible stuff, and then he goes online and then trolls people with some really harsh comments. It's like so back and forth with 50. 50 is one of these guys. When I first started doing this, he wasn't great with the paparazzi. He was like
Mhm.
fine with it. But if you ever caught him at the airport, he did this like 2 times. He'd be like, "Yo, I don't want to talk right now, but give me your number. I'll set something up in the future." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Here's my number, 50." And then he never does anything with it. That was his way of getting out of it.
It's
Like,
such a
"Oh, yeah,
smart little move where you're like,
yeah,
"Oh, great. Okay,
if
yeah, this is gonna be
yeah,
dope."
yeah." I'm like, "Oh man, 50 has my number. Yeah, call me, text me, dude. Let's set it up." And
He came in to host TMZ one day, so I got to meet him. He was pretty fun in person. He was like a good guest host for the show.
was
And I
he?
was
Was
like,
he?
"Oh my God, it's freaking 50 Cent, dude." Like, I don't know, legendary, you know?
He's like a unique, cool guy. I think he's a guy who still has fun with it. He's not your I don't want to say like it sounds weird to say, but he's not like your typical rapper. He's just like a guy who I think it just like messes with people all the time. It's just like having fun with it. He's
He's a
successful.
legit professional troll now.
Yeah,
By the way, I was
yeah.
gonna
He's just
say that Oprah did ask him back in the day, "Hey, do you know who shot you?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I know who shot me." He goes, "I knew shortly after, but that guy's dead." And he didn't say how he's dead. He
yeah.
didn't say how he died. But the guy who paid him to shoot 50 got life in jail.
Wow. That's kind of be. I mean, to know the guy who shot you walking around, but that guy
No, that
just
guy's
randomly is
6 feet
not.
under.
No, yeah, is no longer walking around. Yeah, unique world, unique culture. Glad he's okay.
Yeah.
But that's 50 Cent. Who else we got on this list, Dax?
Um, let's talk about Seth MacFarlane and Mark Wahlberg. They had a twist of fate that allows them to be walking on the planet right now. And I didn't even know about this story, which is kind of crazy, but they were actually supposed to be on one of the flights, the American Airlines Flight 11, that crashed into the South Tower of the Trade Center on 9/11. I guess both of them just had little flukes in their life that they were scheduled, they had seats to be on that plane, and they didn't make their flight. And it sounds like Seth was just up partying too late the night before, got drunk, ended up missing the flight, and that is the reason that he is here today. Obviously, Seth MacFarlane, if people don't know, he is the like guy behind Family Guy, and very, very successful producer in his own right. And then Mark Wahlberg, he had a last minute change where he got invited to like the Toronto Film Festival. So him and his family were literally scheduled to be on the flight. There was some last minute change. He got an invite and instead changed plans, or he would have also been going down in the flight that took down the Twin Towers.
That is insane. Can you? I mean, they're both. There's a lot of people that have kind of been in that. Can you imagine just kind of living with that? It's got to change your perspective for the rest of your life when something like that happens,
Yeah.
where you missed a flight that would have ended your life, and then the rest of your life you have to live on. It's like, man, I am so fortunate that something happened that day,
Yeah.
and that is.
Well, it makes you realize how every little moment, and I'm weird like this. Like I think about this a lot. Like one little moment, how it can change the trajectory. Like you stop instead of running the, yellow light, you stop, and maybe in that next moment, a car goes flying through, and that could have been you landing in the emergency room. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
everything is all about this timing, and that he misses that flight, and then he is now on the planet today.
You know what? I mean, that day obviously was such an insane day, and there's so many stories going on about that day, and there's so much loss that day. I think it's actually kind of cool of them in a way to not speak about that incident even more, because it's not about them, it's about the others who weren't fortunate.
Yep.
And because it's such an insane thing, and it's like, yeah, I just think I respect Mark and Seth for not speaking about it more.
Yeah.
It's because unfortunately other people weren't as lucky as them. But yeah, crazy enough. Who else we have on this list, Dax?
Brooke Shields. If you remember, God, this was years ago. But she had a pretty big health scare the week that her cabaret debut was happening. She had a grand mal seizure, and she was doing this like one performance show, and it was in New York's Cafe Carlyle. And basically, she was prepping for the show. She was drinking a ton of water, and she didn't know her sodium was low. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know that this was a possibility, but she basically almost drowned herself because she was drinking so much water, had no sodium in her body, and it ended up causing her the seizure. She said she was like leaving her home, and people kept asking her, "Are you all right? Do you need something? You don't seem yourself." And she goes, "Well, I felt fine. It didn't seem like anything was going." And then she said that everything started to go black. Then her hands dropped to her side, and she went headfirst into a wall. She said that she had a grand mal seizure, describing it as basically frothing at the mouth, totally blue, trying to swallow my tongue. She said the next thing she remembers is being loaded into an ambulance, having oxygen on, and Bradley Cooper sitting next to her holding her hand. So,
Well, they're
she said,
neighbors. Yeah.
yeah. She said, I didn't have a sense of humor. I couldn't really tell. I couldn't really get any words out. I thought to myself, this is what death must be like. You wake up and Bradley's going, I'm going to go to the hospital with you, Brooke. And he's holding my hand, and I'm looking at my hand, and I'm looking at Bradley's hand. And I'm like, well, this is odd and surreal. So she explained the whole situation, but really just crazy. She said the doctors said that they thought my brain was seizing, and she had EEGs, catheters, IVs, everything. And they put her in the ICU. So just nuts.
Can you imagine? Like, that sounds horrible and horrific. Like,
Yeah.
having that happen. Like, you feel like you're like drowning, but you're not drowning. That, to me, that sounds brutal. That's
Who knew
giving me
like low sodium can cause like a grand mal seizure? Wow.
yeah. Well, who knew that? Lucky. Can you imagine, Dax? Like, getting a little. Have you ever fainted?
I don't think so.
I fainted twice, and it was from giving blood. One of them because I was just so like kind
I
of
got woozy, but I didn't faint.
yeah. I fainted twice. One during COVID actually. I was giving blood, and the girl missed the vein, so she was pretty much like stabbing me, like trying to pump blood out of me. I'm like, "There's nothing coming out. You're not in it." And then I fainted. And when you faint, you don't know what's going on. You wake up and you're like on a high.
Yeah.
It's very weird. But can you imagine just waking up and I mean, I guess she's used to seeing Bradley Cooper, but Bradley Cooper of all people is just standing right there. Pretty
Right.
yeah, it's that's definitely a unique thing. Yeah, but Brooke Shields, wild story. Brooke Shields, one of Dean Cain's exes. We forget
So
about that.
random.
Yeah.
What did you think about the time Dean Cain came on the podcast telling us about Brooke Shield or what?
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's a cool thing to have on his resume. Like he was with Brooke Shields. She's had a weird, interesting, crazy life too. So,
She really
but
has.
this was just one small part of it. Maybe maybe the scariest part of her life. So glad we still have Brooke Shields. Who else we have on this list, Dex?
All right, going back to another plane story, Travis Barker. This one was a very, very famous incident that he almost lost his life in. But remember back September 19th, 2008, Barker and a couple people boarded a small aircraft. It only had two pilots, his security guard, his personal assistant, his friend, collaborator, DJ AM, and they were flying from South Carolina to California. Just before midnight, the plane took off on the runway. Passengers reported hearing like a loud bang, which I guess he had described as like gunshot sounds at the time. And so air traffic control claimed that they saw sparks coming from the plane, with pilots reporting back that the ground control that the tire had blown out and that they needed to abort takeoff. So the plane ended up running off the runway and crashing through the airport boundary fence, crossing the South Carolina 302 highway, and eventually coming to rest on this like embankment before bursting into flames. It took firefighters over an hour to get the flames under control. Both pilots ended up losing their lives, and basically Still and Baker as well. Travis Barker and DJ AM managed to escape the aircraft. Most people, I think, forget because DJ AM obviously had passed away years later, but they kind of associate this with him not being here. But that's not the case. Both of them were able to get out of the aircraft that day, both with second-degree burns. Barker said that he was covered in jet fuel and emerged from the plane on fire, having to slide down the wing to reach the ground before ripping off his clothes to put out the fire. Someone told him to do the stop, drop, and roll, which put out most of the flames. But but Travis ended up suffering 65% of his body's covered in burns. Almost had his right foot amputated and was in the hospital for 11 weeks, undergoing 27 different surgeries and skin grafts. He basically said that when I was in the hospital, I was on so many drugs. I didn't even know my friends had passed away. I didn't even know that the pilots had passed away. I didn't remember anything. He said he kept thinking everyone was in the hospital, including the 2 pilots, including his friends, and just in different rooms. And then he realized that wasn't the case. So he said, in about 11 of my 30 surgeries in the burn center, I woke up swinging on doctors. I'd open my eyes and just go crazy. I wanted to get off the table. I didn't think I knew what was going on, but they couldn't give me enough medication to knock me out because I had been self-medicating for so long and abusing meds for so long. I just wake up in the middle of the anesthesia.
Yeah.
Crazy, right?
I mean, DJ AM was one of the biggest. DJ AM might have been one of the first DJs to be not just a popular DJ, but to become a celebrity. He had a relationship with Nicole Richie. Did you ever get to go see DJ AM play live or do his thing live?
Dude, I think I told you this before. I got to see a private concert with DJ AM and Travis Barker playing. There was maybe 25 people in the room. It was,
wow.
I want to say it was for some AOL event back in the day. But it was this tiny little room in the valley. I remember going upstairs, and I don't know why they were doing it. It was some kind of exhibition or something. And I'm telling you, it was me, and then it was the drum set.
Yeah.
And DJ AM next to him. And I'm like, how did I end up in here? And so, yeah, I got to see them up close and personal. It was cool.
Yeah, he AM was really good. He did something that was sort of unique and different. I think there's some guy I follow on Instagram now is kind of doing what made DJ AM really cool was he was taking the lyrics or the words from one song and putting it over a different beat and just made it in a really good part. It wasn't the same sort of commercial stuff. And I saw him intimate clubs and I was like, oh, he's the real deal. And then when this happened, I mean, Travis Barker, man, first of all, one of the nicest guys. And I met Travis Barker after this incident. And he's a very nice guy, very cool, very nice, very positive, good to the fans. I'm curious what kind of person he was before that, if he was the same guy, and if that incident kind of changed him as a person, it changed his perspective on life, the way he approaches relationships in his life, because he's always very cool and very nice. So crazy how much he passed, and he wouldn't travel for a while, Dax, right?
No, he had major PTSD. He had talked about,
understandably so.
Yeah, he talked about, I think he opened up in Men's Health about the PTSD. He would see a plane fly through the sky and be like, it's going to crash. It's going to crash. It's going to crash. Because it was just so ingrained in his mind. And so I remember whenever Blink-182 would do anything, it was always by bus. They would cross country and bus, because he refused to get on planes. And it took years. Actually, what's interesting, he gets with Kourtney Kardashian, and they're known for flying all over the world, all the time. They're always traveling, going places. And so it took Kourtney and his relationship with Kourtney to get him back on a plane. And I remember them kind of describing the fact that she was holding his hand and saying we're going to be okay. And, walking him through the process of getting back on a flight. And I remember he posted a photo of the two of them. He's standing outside the private jet and she's on top of him. And he said, with you, anything is possible, Kourtney Kardashian. And I think that was a big moment in his life and in their relationship, that she was able to help him overcome one of the biggest fears of his entire life.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him. Anybody else, Dax, we have on this list? Any other celebrities that we almost lost?
Do you want one more plain one?
One more plain one. Can I guess the name? I'm going to guess. Okay, you said. I was going to guess Harrison Ford. You think of plane? I'm like, you said plane. I'm like, it's either John Travolta or Harrison Ford. And I kind of remember this Harrison Ford because he sort of made that for me. He made this airport famous, or this golf course famous to me. So yeah, tell me about this Harrison Ford one.
Yeah, so Harrison Ford was in a little bit of an incident. He was, he was basically flying around. He's got a bunch of planes. Did you know that he has like a whole fleet of planes?
That's cool. I mean, it's pretty unique and cool.
And what's cool is, so I remember this back in the day. He has like a helicopter. He has a jet. He has like a Cessna. He has all these planes, and they're all like dark green. And I don't know why I remember this, but he would always like have these planes, and they're all the same color. And I just thought it was so cool that you got like a whole fleet to yourself. However, the one he crashed was not one of the green ones. It was this bright yellow plane. Anyway, he's got two incidents. One, he landed on the taxiway of the John Wayne Airport in Orange County instead of the runway. You know what I'm saying? So like where the planes are supposed to be essentially like driving, that's where he landed, which is a huge no-no. He was returning from a visit to his aunts, and I guess just wasn't like paying attention. So that was one time he landed and like embarrassed him because it got so much news and so many headlines that he was like, fuck, I feel like an idiot, and everyone's going to know I'm an idiot. So that one was just a really embarrassing moment. But there was another moment when he had to crash land in the middle of a golf course. And I think that's probably the one you're thinking of. That was a very famous incident where he took down his plane. He needed to crash land. The controls weren't working. And so he looked around, and what is there? There's a golf course out in the valley. And he goes, all right, well, here we go. And crash landed this thing and somehow walked away from it.
It's a terrible situation. However, how smart of him to kind of land on a golf course.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though.
Terrible situation. How smart of him to land on a golf course so he wouldn't affect other people. Obviously, he could damage a golf course a little bit, but there's a little bit of a landing strip there. I mean, not much. It could be 300 yards, but like the safest place so he doesn't hurt other people.
Well, you also have to realize when you're up in the air and you're looking around, LA is jam-packed. It's buildings, houses, freeway. So you either get to choose between a freeway or a golf course is probably the next best spot that you can crash land. There's a lot of space. You don't have the trees, I would worry about people actually on the golf course golfing because it was 2:30 p.m. on a Thursday. And the golf course is called Penamar Golf Course. And so that's a dangerous spot, but nevertheless, he crash landed it and then was able to walk away unharmed. Well, I guess he did go to the hospital. He was having some trouble, but that's about it.
Yeah. Harrison Ford still flying planes too. He's one of those guys where he's older than you think. How old? I gotta look that up. How old is Harrison Ford?
Because
he's one of those guys where
he was 72 when this crash happened, and that was a couple of years ago. So he's got to be upper 70s at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's 81 years old now.
Harrison Ford, 81.
He's 81 years old. Indiana Jones, by the way, the last one. Did you watch it yet?
No.
No. Better movie than you think. I thought it was a good movie, and I mean, is it a classic? No, but it was a fun movie. He's one of those guys where it's like you don't realize how old he is, but good for him that he's still kind of traveling. And again, I commend him for kind of de-escalating the plane and crashing the plane into a place where he couldn't hurt other people. I mean, yeah. Good on him. Any more Dax we have on this list?
Oh, I think we need to talk Jeremy Renner. We brought him up on the last episode saying we would talk about him in this episode. So I got to bring up Jeremy Renner because he had a freak incident on New Year's Day. And this was back in 2023, New Year's Day in 2023. He was nearly crushed at his Nevada home when he tried to stop the snow removal tractor from sliding and hitting his adult nephew. If you remember at the time, he ended up breaking like 8 ribs in 14 places. I want to say his eye socket was broken, his knee, he had a collapsed lung, his liver pierced from a rib bone. And this was a very, very near-death experience. And he's actually been pretty open about the recovery process. He posts a lot on his social media about just learning how to walk again and how to, do normal daily activities after such a horrific incident. And have you ever seen the video where they do like a recreation of what happened that day?
No.
So it's like he went to, so the tractor starts going or like sliding, and he goes to jump on. And how do I explain it? It looks, it's not like a normal tractor. It's almost like it's got the wheels of a tank, right? Because it's a snow one. It's got like the weird like tank wheel kind of situation. And he went to like jump on that, and then it ended up sliding him off and basically rolling over him. And this is a very heavy machine.
Yeah, it's such a, when that thing went down, when you heard I think everyone was wondering, how does something like that happen? And it was just so sort of random.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was he legit was, I mean, he's still recovering. We only recently did we sort of see him kind of come out of his I mean, he put out like messages and thank you for everyone for the well wishes, but he's still recovering. I mean, that was a really random story.
Gnarly story. And I mean, the amount of coverage. So I don't, this one is not going to be some kind of like shocking information for people. But I think that we needed to add it to the list for sure. And then
for sure.
Do we do one last one?
One last one.
Okay, let's talk Kevin Hart, just because he was also involved in a 2019 car crash that left him needing surgery and almost left him dead. But on September 1st, he was a passenger in a car that rolled into an embankment in Malibu Hills, California. It caused him major back injuries. He had to undergo surgery. He was discharged 10 days after the crash to recover in a rehabilitation center. But he basically summed it up. He did an interview with, I think it was Joe Rogan, talking about, he said, the biggest cry in my life came from the first day that I came home from the hospital because I never had to see that house again. He said, I never had to see the house again. I don't really know what that means. Like there was an option of me never seeing that home again. There was an option of me never walking in that driveway again. There was an option of me never seeing my wife and kids again. So he is very, very happy to be alive today and very fortunate to be here after that. And I remember that story, there was a lot of people getting ready to post the death report. You know what I'm saying? I remember when he went to the hospital, people were like, had those articles pre-written, Kevin Hart dead, and luckily never actually had to end up posting them.
Yeah. Again, I think with that story, there were so people, when that story first came out, people wanted to kind of go into the fact where it wasn't the injury. It was more of like Kevin Hart was speeding in this car. That was the first, he was racing his car. He was speeding. I was like, guys, this is one of the, this is Kevin Hart, one of the biggest comedian in the world. And very serious injuries. I remember he made a full comeback. Yeah. But I think everyone was first to jump on the negatives of the story. Like, oh, he was speeding. He was driving recklessly. And I was like, no. Let's forget that right now. Let's focus on this guy getting better. And he kind of spoke about it. And well,
he was also the passenger. He wasn't the driver of that car. So.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten into a bad car accident? Like a really bad car accident?
Oh, God. Knock on wood. No. I mean,
knock on wood.
I've had accidents. Hold on. All right, I knocked on wood, you psycho, for just saying that to me.
Yeah,
no, I've been very fortunate in my life. I've seen some gnarly accidents when I was driving to LA every single day and driving early in the morning, and you'd see people come flying down the road. I've seen some crazy ones where like people were in the middle of the median, the car is flipping. I saw one where the car spun out in the road, and wild.
Yeah, well, guys, that ends our episode of celebrities that almost died, part 2. Celebrities we almost lost, part 2. You guys loved the first one. We did a second one because we couldn't get to all the names. Thank you guys for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening, we appreciate it. Give us a comment, give us a review. We'll give you a shout out on the air. Follow our TikTok page, follow our Instagram page, follow us on Facebook. We have a private Facebook group called Off the Record, which is a really, really cool, fun community where we can interact with each other. Follow Dax Holt at Dax Holt. Follow me at Adam Glyn. And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
What's up, guys? If you like that video, there's plenty more where that came from.
Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell so we can just feed you all the goodness daily.
Hurry up. Come on, let's go.